Hello, I am Jennifer Brewer with the Arkansas Behavior Support Specialist. Thank you for tuning in to this session of Behavior Breaks Token Economy. Token economy is an individual reinforcement system in which students earn tokens for engaging in appropriate behaviors. The appropriate behaviors for which a student earns a token are predetermined. The tokens are earned and then exchanged for desired reinforcers. A little later, we will further discuss determining appropriate behaviors as well as developing and implementing a token economy system. First, let's talk briefly about the history of the token economy system and meet Connie Thomason, who is very familiar with the use of this reinforcement system, and learn from her about why it works. The token economy system has been around for centuries. This system has been used in various settings, including prisons, military, residential facilities, mental hospitals, and even colleges. In fact, we all use a token economy system. Think about your paycheck. We can't eat our paycheck. We can't cool ourselves in the summer and warm ourselves in the winter with our paycheck. We can't protect ourselves from danger and natural elements with our paycheck. I guess if you wanted, you could play with your paycheck, make a paper airplane and fly it, but eventually that would probably get boring to most of us. However, we can trade our money in for food that provides us nutrients and substance. We can pay our air conditioning and heating bills with the money. We can buy a home for safety and appropriate clothing and accessories to protect us from natural elements. If we budget appropriately, there may even be money left over to use for entertainment other than flying our paycheck like a paper airplane. So we engage in appropriate activities at work. We receive our paycheck which acts as a token, and are able to later exchange the token for backup reinforcers such as food, housing, clothing, and entertainment. I want to introduce you to my dear friend and coworker, Connie Thomason. Connie, thank you so much for joining today's Behavior Break and talking about token economy with us. I know this is one of your favorite reinforcement systems. Can you tell us a little bit?
Jennifer, it really is. So I had 20 years in the classroom. And Jennifer, probably my claim to fame was I had excellent classroom management skills. And it was because I actually had an ace up my sleeve. It was actually a token economy system in place. It was the quickest way I found to really gain control of my classroom and really shape those academic and social behaviors.
Awesome. So Connie, would you please tell us what makes token economy such a successful system?
So really, the students have buy-in in the very beginning because you have to get their input. So I had 3 expectations in my classroom, and it was respect yourself, respect others, and be responsible for your own actions. So the students on that first and second day of school, they would actually popcorn out examples and non-examples. So they may say, they said, oh, we need to be in our seat when the bell rings. I said, all right, great. And I would write it on a sticky note. And then they'd say, well, what's the opposite of that? And they'd say, oh, roaming around the classroom. And then they'd say, oh, we need to keep our hands to ourselves. And I said, great. Well, what's the opposite of that? And they'd say, oh, if we're going and we mess with other people, we'll pop them on the back of the neck. That kind of thing.
Yeah. Awesome. You use token economy in your classroom. So tell us what it looked like actually in your classroom using the system.
All right. So my token economy system, well, for the principals and administrators, we called it the behavior reward card. But my students, they nicknamed it the money card. And Jennifer, it was so simple. It was simply a sheet of paper. There were 4 on a sheet. I needed something simple. There was 10 circles beside it. Monday through Friday was listed on one side. The 10 circles represented 10 cents. So the students can earn $1 a day. Okay. Also had a response cost built in. I would have an honest conversation with the students, letting them to know that, school is their job. And if I'm paying them $1 a day, what is it going to cost them if they're not doing their job? If they're not doing those classroom expectations. So the students would determine how much it was going to cost. Okay. So let's say if they said a curse word, okay, they'd say, oh, well, that curse word, it may cost us, cussing will cost us 30 cents. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I really didn't have any argument going on. Also, the students had input in how they wanted to spend their money. We established that every Friday would be our shopping day. So they would go shopping, or they could bank their money for more expensive items. They could also shop. Their shopping list came from just a personal list that they generated. some kinds of things. Some kids wanted edibles, hot fries, Takis, while others may want extra 10 minutes of recess or baby being first in the lunch line.
Okay, well, let's take a look at an example of the card that Connie was talking about for just a second. Is there anything else you would like to share about the token economy system?
We had really clear procedures in place on how to earn their tokens, how they could actually lose their tokens, and how those tokens could be redeemed. We also practiced for 2 weeks before actually implementing the procedures. This is very important, especially when you're working with those students that are oppositional defiant, emotionally disturbed. Because Jennifer, what's going to happen when you take away their tokens?
Oh, they're going to explode.
Yeah. So by me modeling for 2 weeks, I would put the responsibility back on them. I'd be like, oh, you're roaming around the classroom. So how much would that cost you? It really started making them accountable for their actions and behaviors because they helped establish those parameters of that token economy system in the very beginning.
Awesome. So what advice would you give to a novice teacher implementing this?
Yeah. Because you're just starting out, you may not want to take tokens away from students, because it could trigger some possible meltdowns. So instead, you could just reward and shape those positive behaviors. Hey, I like the way you came in and sat in your seat. Here's 10 cents, or here's a token, or I like how you did this. Boom.
And pointing out what they're doing.
Exactly.
Love it.
Here's an example of the behavior reward card that I used. The students were required to have the money card out at all times on the corner of their desk. Let's say on Monday, the student said a curse word, and I would just walk by and put an X on 3 of their dimes because that infraction would cost them 30 cents. On Fridays, the students would add up their money card and go shopping. This also provided valuable data for students that had behavior plans or behavior goals. For this student, since they received 4 out of $5, my data would show they mastered 80% of their behavior goals for that week.
Thank you, Connie, for giving us a better understanding of why this reinforcer system works. Let's get into creating and implementing a token economy system.
Sounds good.
In the materials, you will find this visual aid to print out as a reminder of the steps for creating and implementing a token economy system for your students. Let's take some time to dig into the different steps. Before creating the token economy system for your student, you must determine the goal behavior you want your student to exhibit. This behavior should be defined using terms that are observable and measurable. This means only behaviors you can see or hear and measure either frequency, time, or intensity. Ensure your behavior definitions are written using objective terms and state the specific behavior, such as student will raise their hand and wait at his or her assigned area to be called on before answering a question, rather than saying the student will be respectful. Once you have defined the behavior expectations and everyone is clear, you will develop the token economy system. Start by selecting tokens for your student. These tokens can be individualized to match your student's interest and grade level. You can get creative with your tokens. Maybe you want to use pennies on a penny board. Maybe you have a student who likes Legos, so you have your student add a Lego to a stack as one of his tokens. You might have a student who likes princesses, sports, fishing, and maybe even a certain TV show. Let the tokens be individualized to the student. You will also select reinforcers that are motivating to your student. You will want to ensure these are items or activities your student wants and does not have access to them at any other time. You can utilize preference assessments to help determine the reinforcers. We have another behavior break further explaining these assessments. You may also find the resource with free and low-cost reinforcers available from the behavior doctor as a helpful tool when finding new and creative reinforcers that are motivating to your students. This resource can be found in the materials section of this behavior break. You will then set the value of the token. You may want to determine the number of tokens that can be earned for displaying certain levels of behavior. Let's go back to the behavior goal of the student raising his or her hand and waiting in the assigned area. Maybe the student gets 1 token for each of those. So let's imagine the student raises his hand, but he walks over and stands next to the teacher. The student could still earn 1 token for raising his hand and waiting. It can be effective to let the student earn tokens in the beginning for appropriate behaviors he or she already exhibits. During the development stage, you will set the cost of each reinforcer, determine the cost of each backup reinforcer. More preferred items should require more tokens. Consider how many tokens the student can earn between each exchange of tokens for backup reinforcers. If costs are too low, the student may lose motivation after a few tokens earned. On the other hand, if costs are too high, the student may see it as impossible and quit before earning a backup reinforcer. Construct your bank. Have a system to track the number of tokens earned and spent for backup reinforcers. This data can help you make adjustments in the cost of items. Before implementing the system, set up a schedule for the student to exchange their tokens for a reinforcer of their choice. You will need to determine if your student can exchange tokens as they are earned or at set times. Determine if tokens can be exchanged daily, weekly, or multiple times a day. Remember, this is an individualized system, so even if you have multiple students using the system, they may have different schedules depending on their needs. Okay. Once the system is developed, you are ready to implement the system for your student. Start by teaching the student what token economy is and how it works. Teach your student when and where the token economy will be used. Ensure your student knows the rules for earning and exchanging tokens. Practice the behaviors required to earn tokens and reward tokens during this practice time. Then, practice exchanging the tokens for the preferred reinforcer. Teach him or her the value of the token. At first, allow the student to exchange each earned token for a backup reinforcer. This exchange should be as immediate as possible. Once tokens are associated with backup reinforcers, you can increase the number of tokens the student must earn and/or the amount of time the student must wait to exchange tokens. Remember to award tokens with positive behavior-specific praise and deliver the token immediately following the appropriate behavior. Susie, thank you for raising your hand and waiting to be called on. Great job. Here's a token. Notice in my example, I thank the student for exhibiting the behavior goal by using behavior-specific praise. This is important for the students to associate the appropriate behavior with the token and the praise. Once the student is consistently exhibiting the behavior goal, you will begin fading the tokens. However, it is important to continue the behavior-specific praise. In the beginning, the student should earn a token for each instance of the goal behavior. Once he or she is consistently exhibiting the behavior, gradually increase the number of instances required for earning a token and/or increase the amount of time the student must exhibit the behavior to earn the token. Remember to make these changes gradually. Even when you do not deliver a token, continue to deliver the behavior-specific praise for each instance. You will want to increase the number of backup reinforcers that are likely to be found in your student's natural environment. Begin increasing the number of tokens required to earn the backup reinforcers and fade the physical evidence of the tokens. Finally, remember, sometimes we have to make adjustments to the interventions we put into place, and that's okay. Make adjustments as necessary to help your student be successful. Consider the difficulty of the goal behavior for the student. Has criteria been set too high in the beginning? Make sure you are changing backup reinforcers regularly and your student is remaining interested in the reinforcers available for exchange. Connie, let's talk about some potential problems with implementing the token economy system and helping find some solutions. So what about unequal pricing of reinforcers? So what I mean is reinforcers are priced too low and the student is able to earn multiple reinforcers in one setting, or the reinforcers are priced too high, resulting in our students just simply giving up.
Jennifer, you're so right. You really have to find that right balance and make sure the students see the value of those tokens and cashing in those tokens for those desired reinforcers. So, for example, in my rewards store, a 25-cent bag of chips or a 35-cent bag of chips would actually cost them $4 in behavior money.
Okay.
So once you roll it out, you will know in a couple of weeks if your pricing is feasible. Just be flexible, make adjustments as needed just for lowering and increasing your prices.
Okay, great. So we've seen this happen. What about our hoarders? You know what I mean? The student who collects large numbers of tokens, and maybe that student assumes he or she doesn't have to behave until the tokens run out and they need to earn some more to use it in your store, because hoarding could result in the student purchasing a large number of reinforcers in one day, right?
Oh, yeah. So over the years, I have had a few students that I would have labeled maybe a ticket or token hoarder. They really didn't need that instant gratification, and they wanted to bank their money, or their tokens. If this happens, first, just make sure your reinforcers match what the students desire. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're holding on to their tokens and tickets because they don't like any of your items, that you're offering.
Okay. So easy fix.
Very easy. Second, you can always place an expiration date on those tokens. Every 6 weeks, 9 weeks, maybe at the end of the semester.
Okay.
Just make that part of your procedures and rules. This really may be helpful for those students who want to purchase a large quantities of those reinforcers. When this happens, I call this break the bank, So I just have an honest conversation with the students, and I just tell them that their purchases could break the bank and keep other students from getting their rewards. So I would just ask them, could they give me the heads up prior to them cashing in their tokens, so that I would be prepared to not only honor their payout, but also honor the other students' payout.
Okay. I like that. So let's talk about one more potential problem that we see often with token economy. And that's we fade the tokens too quickly and the behavior begins to deteriorate.
Yeah. So I'll be honest. During my first year of implementing this, I faded the tokens too quickly, and I started seeing a spike in behaviors. So I had to go back to the drawing board, and provide that continuous reinforcement mixed with that verbal praise. Also, for 1 week, I had the students model those expectations and act out those examples and non-examples after they returned from a break.
Okay.
So I would front load it the first 2 weeks of school, model. But then after spring break, winter break, Christmas break, I would also have them model again.
Okay. So like a fire drill.
Exactly. Just like
when you're practicing that.
Yes. Another thing I did was I started increasing the time between receiving the tokens and obtaining those reinforcers. So I started every Friday. Okay. That would be our shopping day, but I would do that from August to about February. And then by February, though, I could start going every other Friday and increasing that time.
Okay. So what did you do once students mastered your classroom expectations?
So once they mastered those classroom expectations, I really raised and altered those expectations. I added additional goals for them to accomplish. I started rewarding them for helping peers. Also, if they helped peers in other classrooms, the teachers could send me an email or catch me in the hall, and they would earn bonus tokens.
Everybody loves a bonus.
Oh, definitely. Also, like if a new student entered, the school, if they befriended that student, sat with them at lunch, showed them around, they would earn bonus. If they potentially de-escalated a fight or scuffle, or their parents attended parent-teacher conference, they would earn an extra $1 or $3 in token money.
Thank you so much. That is a great idea. Connie, thank you for joining us in this behavior break brought to you by the Arkansas Behavior Support Specialist, and just giving us a better understanding of how to implement this strategy in our classroom, and then providing some solutions to the most common problems we may come across once we implement this. So thank you for tuning in to learn more about the token economy system and how to use it in your classroom. Please tune in to more behavior breaks and our online courses free to everyone at www.arbss.org.